Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name is Lisa and I like to read books on the internet. Okay, so today is the 1st of July and I want to really quickly go through all of the books that I read in June. I read 6 books in the month of June, which is my goal for all the summer months, is to read at least 6 books. I got there by the skin of my teeth. I literally finished my last one yesterday, so I got my 6 in the end, which is good. I'm hoping to do the same for July, but maybe not leave it so late in the month to get there. So from the 6 books that I read in June, 3 of them were physical books. One of them was a Kindle book from Kindle Unlimited. 2 of them were ARCs. One of those ARCs was on Kindle and the other one was an audiobook. The first book that I read and finished in June was on my Kindle. It was the ARC that I read on my Kindle. I got my ARC from NetGalley and it was Glow Job by Kristen Bailey. Now Kristen Bailey has a huge backlist which I will potentially dip my toe into later on, but Glow Job was my first impression of this writer and I actually really enjoyed this book. It was cute, it was light, it was really enjoyable for the first 50 to 60%, and then it got a little bit random with like random things happening kind of to drive the plot, but there was enough going on. I think that there was some of the things that could have been left out. There are also the 2 main characters, the 2 main characters are Ben and Chloe, and I wasn't really rooting for them the way I do in some other books, and just some of the character development or the opposite of that, because I didn't really like how Ben turned out at one point. There were just some things about this book that I didn't love, so I ended up giving it 3 stars, which is a pretty decent rating. I know some people think that 3 stars is a bad rating. It's absolutely not. I am a pretty harsh reader, so the majority of the books I read are 3 stars. The next book that I finished in June again was on my Kindle. It's The Right Move by Liz Tomfordy. I would say Tom Ford, but the audiobook says Tom Fordy, so we're going to go with that. This is the second book in this series, in the Windy City series, and the first book I didn't actually love, but this book is what has sold me on this series and I cannot wait to continue it. I really loved this book. I loved the characters, I loved the plot, everything. I loved absolutely everything, and I was struggling when I read the first book in this series. I was thinking that maybe I wasn't going to continue this series, but this has convinced me otherwise. I will 100% be continuing this series. I gave The Right Move 4.25 stars. I think the 0.75 extra to make this a 5-star, there were just some things that I read this in a vlog and I would have mentioned it at the time, but there were things that happened and worked out just because Ryan had a lot of money, and I feel like if a relationship is only working because somebody has money to do something, that's a little bit iffy for me. So I would have just liked to see them work around things without the money. But 4.25 for The Right Move, and I cannot wait to continue this series. And then I read With This Kiss by Kerry Hope Fletcher. And this is a book that I have had on my TBR for at least 2 years, and I've been putting it off because I just felt like it was going to be a bad book and I was scared that it was going to put me into a slump. Thank God it didn't put me into a slump, because this was only the 3rd book of the month, so I definitely wouldn't have reached my goal of 6 books if I had. The premise of this book is something I've never read before. The female main character in this book, whose name I cannot remember, Lorelai, she has this like gift where when she kisses somebody she has like a vision of how they're going to die, and because of that she's kind of lived her whole life avoiding relationships, etc., because it's scary. Fantastic idea for a story, and I actually really liked all the background and stuff. I just had no connection to the characters in this book. I was not rooting for the love interest. I thought their relationship was a little bit strange. I thought her and her roommate's relationship was strange. I thought her and her mother's relationship was strange. I just couldn't connect to her really. So for that reason it took away from my enjoyment a bit. I think this story written in a different way with different characters could have been a 5-star read for me, but this one unfortunately was not. It was a 3.25 star. I enjoyed it. I liked the story. I couldn't love it. and I wanted to, but I just couldn't. The fourth book that I finished in June was The Real Book by Sarah Adams. This book has been on my TBR for, again, like 2 years. I bought this, I think, 2 years ago, right after I read The Cheat Sheet, which is the first book in this kind of duology of interconnected standalones. I don't necessarily think you need to read The Cheat Sheet to read this, but I always like to read books in order. This one surprised me. I enjoyed this a lot more than I expected. The first 85% of this book were perfect for me, and then it kind of slowed down a little bit and I felt a little bit disconnected from what was happening. I didn't really love some of the things that happened, more so like the logistics of things. I wasn't understanding how things were working out the way they were. But having said that, I did thoroughly enjoy reading this book. I loved our two main characters, specifically Derek and his friends and his relationship with his friends. There was kind of like a found family feeling there. I rated this one 4 stars, and I will definitely be continuing reading Sarah Adams books. I will probably go on to the When in Rome little duology next, because I really enjoyed this and I loved her writing. The next book that I finished in June was actually the audiobook that I was listening to through NetGalley, and it was called Trouble Brewing by Walker Rose. This has the most adorable cover, stunning, fabulous, love it, and it had a really interesting description, which is why I requested it. It kind of gave like cowgirl, city boy, and like kind of slow burn rivals to lovers type thing, and it just didn't give me what I expected going into it. I really wanted to love this book because it is going to be a series and I would want to continue it, but there was just a few things that I kind of didn't like about the book. So first of all, in the very beginning you're introduced to a huge amount of people with obviously like names, and I was getting so confused about who was who and which brother was which and everything. That did get better as the book went on, but I just found in the beginning I was so confused that I didn't even want to listen to it. I think part of that was because I was listening to it. I suppose if you're reading it, it's a lot easier to just flick back and see who's who. I was expecting enemies to lovers, which I quite like as a trope, but this was hate to love in 0.5 seconds. He hated her, and then next of all he was in love with her. It was too insta-lovey for me. They literally completely changed their lives to fit each other. Oh, this book takes place over the course of like a week, so everything happens really quickly, which I kind of wasn't expecting. I thought it would be dragged out a little bit more. I did love this setting, and I wish we kind of got more of the town and that kind of thing in the book, which we didn't. There's a whole backstory with Meredith's sister married the main character's dad. I can't even remember his name. Meredith's sister married the dad of the main character years and years ago. That's why he kind of hates her. There's a whole backstory there. But Meredith's sister's actions are questionable. That was why the brothers didn't like Meredith, was because they felt her sister's actions were questionable, and I agree. Her actions were very questionable. The dad also seems like he would have been a really unlikable person, and at the same time there was this mystery that was being built up throughout the whole book, and it was very obvious what it was, like this plot twist I suppose it was supposed to be, but it wasn't answered at the end of the book. Like the end of the book is that they figure out that the plot twist exists, and I suppose it's like a device to get you to continue reading the series, but I feel like if the series moves on to different main characters, that plot twist won't be as relevant to them, so as a reader you're going to be less interested in it. But I don't know, like the cliffhanger I feel like shouldn't have been a cliffhanger. I feel like it should have been opened and closed in this book. And then also the spicy scenes in this were so cringe. I definitely skipped like 90% of them because I could not listen to them. I ended up giving this book 2.5 stars, and I don't think I'm going to continue this series. I didn't add it to my series tracker unless I see or hear like really great things about the rest of the books in this series. I'm not drawn to it, and I don't think I'll continue. And then the very last book that I read in June was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, and if you've been following for a while you know that I've been trying to get into Abby Jimenez books all year basically. This is the third of her little series that I've read, and I have not loved any of the books until now. This book was phenomenal. It was amazing. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars, and I would give it 6 if I could. It is probably in my top 2 books I've read so far this year. This book was so good. I mentioned in the reading blog where I read this that the other Abby Jimenez books that I've consumed, I've listened to them on audiobook through Spotify, and I don't know whether maybe that's the reason that I wasn't getting on with her so well. Maybe she's an author that's meant to be read and not listened to, because this book was just fantastic. I loved it and I cried multiple times. So if you want to see, if you want to learn a little bit more about my thoughts on this book and also the real book, because I read them in the same video, check out my last video and you will see the journey of me reading what is definitely my favourite Abby Jimenez book. So they are all the 6 books that I read in June. I'm hoping to read at least 6 books again in July. If I can make it 7 secretly, I really want it to be 7, but I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to read 7, so we'll go for 6 for now. If you have any book recommendations for me, maybe based off of the ones that I enjoyed, leave them below and I will definitely get to them at some point. I have huge TBR that I'm trying to work my way through. But for now, thank you so much for watching. If you did like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit subscribe and I will see you in the next one.